Have you ever heard of tiny chefs? They live in a secret world, hidden away in the walls of houses. These chefs love to cook. One day, a group of tiny chefs found themselves in a new home. It belonged to a friendly giant. The giant's kitchen was a magical place for the tiny chefs. "Look at the size of that spoon!" cried one chef, his eyes wide with wonder. Another chef pointed at a giant whisk. "We could get lost in that!" The tiniest chef of all giggled. "Imagine all the delicious food we'll make here." The tiny chefs were excited to start their adventure in the giant's kitchen. But everything in the giant's kitchen was huge. The table was as big as a dance floor. Chairs towered over them like skyscrapers. A single crumb was like a boulder to the tiny chefs. But the giant had left out special tiny tools for his little friends. They used thimbles as pots and pans. Teaspoons were their giant ladles. They rolled berries down hills of sugar to make delicious desserts. The tiny chefs had to be clever to cook in such a big kitchen, but they loved the challenge. The giant was having a party with all his giant friends. The tiny chefs had to work hard to make enough food for everyone. "Chop those carrots!" shouted one chef as he stirred a giant pot of soup. "Bake those potatoes until they are golden brown!" called another chef. The kitchen was a flurry of activity. Chefs scurried here and there, carrying plates piled high with food. They climbed mountains of lettuce and swam through rivers of gravy. The tiny chefs were a great team. Just as everything seemed perfect, disaster struck. A giant egg rolled off the counter. It crashed onto the floor with a sound like thunder. The tiny chefs watched in horror as a tidal wave of yolk came crashing towards them. "Run for your lives!" cried a chef. The tiny chefs scattered in all directions. They swam through the sticky yolk using spoons as boats. Some chefs even surfed on pieces of eggshell. It was a very messy adventure. But the tiny chefs were brave and resourceful. The giant thought the feast was delicious. He thanked the tiny chefs for their hard work. The tiny chefs were very happy. They knew that even in a giant's kitchen, even with a little bit of chaos, cooking could be a delicious adventure.